All right, all right, all right. Happy Tuesday evening. Welcome in Toilets to Titles. This is episode number 166. This is the first Dynasty rookie mock of the offseason, and I feel like we are like shoulders deep. I was going to say knee deep, but then in my brain, I like recalculated. I think we're shoulders deep currently in NFL draft content. So it seems odd that we're finally doing our first rookie mock of the offseason. But if I look back on years past, this is like I want to say the fourth off season of Toilets to Titles. So we usually start around this time, but we are like the crew's gotten bigger. We've spent a lot more time focusing on the draft as well as, fantasy football content and other content. And we are ready to absolutely crush NFL draft season, rookie draft season. You want to go check out toiletstitles.com. Check out our draft tab. We got our player profiles. We got our rankings. We got a big board coming up. We got mock drafts. And this evening, I'm joined by a few people from the Toilets Titles crew, the CFB Nation crew, and I'm also joined by a few guests. So I'm going to pass it around. I'm going to introduce some of the guests we have this evening. Then I'll introduce my guys. And then we'll go on. We'll talk about some work we're working on, some rookie prospects. Then we'll go in draft. So, Shane, I'm going to pass it to you first, man. He is probably one of the most recurring guests on Toilets to Titles. That's Shane P. Hallam, at Shane P. Hallam on the Twitter. Shane, what's happening?
I'm feeling good. I love talking draft, man. It feels real. Combine's coming up, so I've been working on that. And draft countdown. We're doing well. I always appreciate you having me on. It's nice to talk a little fantasy action because sometimes that's different from reality. So that'll be fun tonight.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach, anytime we get the Shane sit up with the rubbing of the hands like Birdman, it's about to be a great episode.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, you heard that. That's the other half of Toilets to Titles, my new co-host while Justin is in his hiatus, and that is Moon. That's at @FF_Moon Vibes on the Twitter. Moon, what's cooking?
Everything's cooking right now. Cooking with hot fish grease, like Nino was saying.
Yeah. Hell yeah. It's good to see you, man. I'm ready for your analysis this evening. I'm ready to dive into some rookies because I know we don't always agree. Everyone's not going to agree, and it's going to be exciting to see. What I'm excited to see is after we do a few of these, where the ADP stands. Like that's the most exciting thing. Like the first one's fun, but it's going to change. And that's why I just completed my wide receiver rankings. You're going to see them at toiletstitles.com. And it's fun, like, turning stones over or kind of noticing something different when you watch your film and adjusting everything. So I know this is going to change, but this is the start of us generating our ADP. All right, let me introduce our other guest this evening. It's Jeremy. It's at Popes FFH on the Twitter. Jeremy, what's cooking?
Yeah, nothing much, just diving deep into the rookie stuff. Got the threads and stuff coming out on Twitter, all written work over at ftnfantasy.com. Other than that, just trying to dive through. I feel like the rookie season this year is taking a little bit longer. I'm trying to do a little bit more deeper on some of these guys as far as the threads go. I'm trying to get deeper into the class, but, I'm busier than ever, so it's taking a little bit longer to get through those guys. But
man, following you on Twitter is dangerous for me because I like your threads, man. I try to watch film of a player before I read analysis. But I enjoy your threads so much. So I'm in a little bit of a pickle. I don't want my opinion to be swayed, but I also love like how and it's so easy to follow because the way it's generated and the video clips and your little write-ups.
I try to be not too biased there. At the end I give a little bit on it, but right. I just whatever I see. I try to keep it as non-biased as possible.
Right.
And I think that's what's helpful with a lot of it, just kind of let you look at it and see what you want to see.
Great,
I tell you what I
great
see.
Great A.
You can look at it yourself. You get to see the same clip I looked at and kind of make your own assumption from it. So
it
just makes it a little bit harder. I watch the games. That's the big thing. I made a big difference this year is I'm actually watching like the game. So like I'm going through the entire game. So it's taking a little bit longer. Usually I would just try to find like all 22 film or just something to kind of quickly get through some of them. And this year I'm trying to take it through to that next level and really sit down and watch all the games over again as much as I can. So
speaking of somebody who watching the games, and that's one half of the CFB Nation. I always forget if he's the mayor, the governor, the president. I just know this dude's running college football, and he's working with my dude KT over at the CFB Nation. That's my guy, Nino, at Nino Brown _T2T. Nino, what's happening?
You know me. I just trying to stay busy, trying to pump out that content for CFB Nation and Total Titles. Just dropped that Nebraska Black Shirts breakdown this morning, so I can't complain. Just working, man.
And How many Red Bulls have you had today?
3.
Hi. You ever hear that? Like, you ever hear like in high school? I'm not gonna get there's like they say if a guy tells you something, divide it by this, or if a girl says something, multiply by that. Like
You said Red Bull. You
But
said Red Bull.
Red Bull, it's multiply it. He was like, yeah.
If you would have said
5 or 6.
bangs or monsters, it's a different story.
Yeah. How many caffeinated beverages have you gulped?
Yeah. I ain't got enough fingers for that.
Yeah, my man, that's excellent. And Nino, I did check out the Nebraska Cornhuskers, so it's a 15-minute episode that's going to be running every Tuesday on the CFP Nation.
It'll be every Monday morning.
Every Monday morning. All right, so I'm
Nebraska fans love Nino, man.
Yeah. But he called the defensive line the dirt dog. So I reached out to him as I was watching. I was like, man, is this like, because he's dropping knowledge like facts during the episode, and I'm hearing these facts, and then he's referring to these players, and it sounds so matter of fact that I'm like, oh, they must be called the dirt dogs. And I was like, Nino, and he's like, no, I just gave him that nickname. That's what I'm calling the D line. I was like, that's an excellent, like, I feel like if I play in an all IDP league next year again, like we did this year for Toilets and Titles, which I'm hoping that next year we expand and maybe have a few more divisions, get some friends of the show and listeners in there, I might go with the team name, the Dirt Dogs.
Love it.
I'll be all for it, man.
But Terrence Snydington's name is Pot Roast. Like I didn't come up with that one. That's his nickname. So
that's it. That's it. All right. And last but not least, this is the guy who's going to be pulling the strings in the background. He's also going to be mocking with us from the 12th spot. That's my guy Jason. He's in the space shuttle right now. Elon's got him floating around the earth. It's at BFTG Jason on the Twitter. Jason, what's cooking?
Coach, having a great night, man. Here's the problem. I think I've had more caffeine than Nino, and I can't get anywhere near. It's just like right now, it's just to keep me awake, that much caffeine. Like, I don't know what I'd have to do to get the energy Nino has, but I'm pretty sure my heart couldn't take it.
The Red Bulls. It's the Red Bulls. I'm trying to tell you. Yeah.
And it's the listener and the viewer only see and hear like 5% of it, like the tip of the iceberg. I wake up and I check my Twitter. And I feel like, not to toot my own horn, I feel like I do a decent amount of, Jason, you've been around the brand Toilets and Titles for a while, and just the navigating and the trying to get, I feel like I do a decent amount, but every morning I feel like I wake up and I'm trying to catch my breath, trying to get to the surface, swim to the top and see, what do I have going on? What do I got to do? But it's great, man. It pushes me and allows me, I feel like, to take my game to the next level. So everybody in here, I'm going to pass it back to the guests. So Jeremy, you were talking about some of the threads you're doing. What about, let everybody know, where they can find your work, what you got coming up, anything coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned a little bit before, I have everything that's written and or video contents through FTN Fantasy. I have a Dynasty podcast that we're kind of launching. It's just myself talking to myself. So it's nice to be on a podcast that has some people on it. It's a plus. So yeah, we have that. And then, like I said, I'm going to have a ton of stuff over at FTN Fantasy. I do have a Superflex big board over there, top 50 ranking over there. That's going to be constantly updated every week, every bi-weekly at the moment, as I get through some of these guys. Threads, just little informational stuff on Twitter as well. So feel free to shoot me a follow at FF8.
Got you.
Love it. And Shane, you're currently working on your 2030 mock draft. So I want to know, these elementary school students, who's the one that you enjoy watching the most and you think is going to be the most prosperous in the next decade?
Yeah, so actually, Chris Henry Jr., son of former Cincinnati Bengal Chris Henry, is going to be eligible for the 2029 NFL draft. Pac-Man Jones is his adopted father, and he just switched high schools and got an offer from Ohio State this past month. So he's my first round pick for 2029. If you want to go that far in the day,
not even shook. All right, how about this? Let's keep it simpler. Who's your first three for next year's NFL draft right now?
I actually just released yesterday a 7-round 2024 mock.
Yes, where can they find it?
At draftcountdown.com. You can check it out. I kept the order the same. So, obviously Caleb Williams from Southern Cal, the quarterback, is my top guy. And I have Marvin Harrison Jr., the receiver from Ohio State, and Joe Alt, the offensive tackle, the left tackle from Notre Dame, is one of the best offensive tackles I've seen in a couple years. So he's a name that's not getting too much buzz around there that you need to know about.
Boomer knows. My boy Boomer knows about Joe Alt.
Now, where do you think Caleb Williams ends up?
In terms of the
like,
draft?
Who do you think is next year, foreseeing the future? You're doing mock
He's going number one. It doesn't matter
who do you think is if you're mocking him, man, you're looking into the future. Who's the team? Which fan base is going to have the toughest season next year?
Yeah. Which team is going to be the worst? We still got a ways to go.
Atlanta,
to figure out.
Hey, chill, bro. Why my team got to get?
Sorry.
No.
But would you stink for Caleb Williams?
Yes. I mean, I think.
Well, no, I'm asking Moon because Moon's the Falcons fan. Would you, if there was a button you could press today that would guarantee we stink, but I get Caleb Williams, would you push the button?
I want Marvin Harrison Jr.
So no. Well, so you want to be the second worst team in the NFL?
No, I'll take him. I'll take him. Let the Patriots stink.
Nah, I'm kidding. But yeah, I would think about it if our season halfway through doesn't look like, I would consider it.
It doesn't matter what your season is. It doesn't matter if it's a 11-win team. If you're not going to win the Super Bowl, get the first pick and take Caleb Williams. That's what you want.
Crash for Caleb.
That's going to win you. It's going to win you Super Bowls right there.
Shane, is next year's quarterback class better than this year's?
I don't think it is. I know a lot of people think that it is, but we always project a little bit better in advance, and then Spencer Rattler happens, and you're like, oh, whoops, my bad. Sam Howell. Everyone loves Drake May. I love Drake May. He looked great, the quarterback in North Carolina.
I don't know, man.
There's a decent chance
that Josh Downs. I didn't love him.
There's a decent chance that he falls down the board, right? That he has a bad year. So
he's losing weapons. My boy D now, he was diving in. UNC lost weapons. Downs not there.
Devontae Walker's pretty good, so I think they'll repair and replace. But
Jeremy, I saw your face when I talked about next year's quarterback class. So what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, at the moment, I think they're better. But again, like Shane had said, you're going to see guys fall off. We've talked about it before in the past. Like you mentioned, I think the Rattler one sticks out. That class, we all thought it's going to be Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell, and then neither of those guys were even relevant the next year later. So it just kind of is a hard thing to choose. But I do think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback between these two classes. So for me, that's where I'm going to say they're better, even fantasy and just NFL draft wise. I just think that's the best quarterback in the next 2 years. So I'm going to say, at the moment, I think it's a little bit better. I think it could be even a little bit deeper. I think this class, you've got two in Stroud and Young. And then after that, you get some high-end potential in Levis and Richardson, but they're both got their own issues more than the other two. So
what about wide receiver? This year's wide receiver class, I feel like is not very top heavy, but there's a bunch of like second tier guys. What do you think? I mean, obviously there's Marvin Harrison Jr. next year. I think he's better than anybody coming out this season. What are your thoughts on the wide receiver class next year?
I'd say it's pretty even. I'm not too keen on a ton of the wide receivers. I think Harrison's obviously the better option, like you had mentioned, than both classes. But after that, I think it dives into that question mark of exactly what these guys are going to be. You obviously have Xavier Worley. I mean, you've got Mbukwe also out of Ohio State. Neighbors, if it depends on how these weapon charges that just came out, where that's going to go. Aggie Hall, you've had some pretty big names that have been up in there. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But I also think that this class doesn't have as much high-end potential as some of these other guys in next year's class.
What do you think, Nino? You've been sitting quiet and pretty for a little bit. I know college football is your thing, man. What do you think about next year's wide receiver class?
I think next year's wide receiver class has an alpha, but I don't think it has as much of a full second tier as this year's class does.
Yeah, there's like 7.
I would say there's like 10 in the second tier for me, where they're really close. Landing spot is really going to matter for a few of them, but I think in next year you got your Alpha and Marvin Harrison. There's the next tier for that below is like 3 guys, and then the tier after that it kind of starts to mesh together.
Excellent. Well, enough talking about next year. All right, it's 2023. We got the NFL draft coming up. We got this rookie mock draft coming up. I want to thank everybody who's listening at home, however you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube. If you could subscribe, hit the like button, throw us some comments, throw us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I think we just topped 40, which that might not be a big number for the big time shows, but when I saw we were over 40, I was like, dang. All right, I appreciate the love and support. And again, if you throw us a 5-star review, you have a good shot at getting in the Frankenstein League, which these two are in. We got Shane and Jeremy who play Frankenstein, so you could check these guys out. Also, everyone who's commenting during the live show, I appreciate that. It's kind of reminds me of the vibe we get in the Gilded Chat. So if you want to get in our Gilded Chat, we have the Title Tribe thread, which is all the listeners and fans of the show, as well as all of us are in there. And then we got the Frankenstein chat where we're kind of brainstorming some ideas and where all the discussion will go on going forward about how we're going to run next year's league. We're going to be doing some mock drafts in the Gilded Chat. We got a lot of stuff going on. So DM me on the Twitter at Coach Sheps, DM the show at Toilets and Titles, or you can DM Moon, you can DM Nino or Jason. Any of us will get you the link and we will get you in there. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/Toilets and Titles. Tier 1 is the lowest tier. That's $3. Gets you, basically instant access to anything you want from Toilets and Titles, and then anything from there up is additional content. You could go to patreon.com if you're interested. You could see all that other stuff. I'm not going to bore you by describing all that stuff, but if you do join, we do really appreciate that. That helps us do things like go to the Senior Bowl, go to the Combine, anything that's coming down the pipe, possibly the NFL draft, try to get some media access to some spring games. And we have a lot of things we are working on and discussing. And if you support the show, it helps us go out and do that so we can bring some more exclusive content to you, the listener and viewer, while you're sitting at home. So with that being said, we got a 2-round rookie mock to kick off. I want to let everybody know what it is. Superflex. This is a Superflex Mookie bets. No, it's a Superflex rookie mock. Yeah. 2 rounds. It's not snake style. All right, because it's Dynasty. All right, so this isn't a startup draft. It's a rookie mock. And we are going pick 1 through 12. Some of us are going to be picking through 2 teams. And I do want to say we got a friend at home, Jake. It's at Dino Dialogue on the Twitter. You're going to want to check him out. He does a lot of good analysis on the Twitter as well, rookie prospects. And he's going to be picking, I believe he is going to pick 6. And then Jason, you are picking pick 12. And then everybody else besides those 2 is picking for 2 teams. So Moon's kicking this thing off, followed by Jeremy. Then I am up, then Nino, then Shane. And then, like I said, Jake. And then after that, Shane will pick for a second team. Jeremy, I will pick. Moon will pick. Nino will pick. And then Jason will pick. So why don't we take this thing into the draft? Why don't we pull up that share screen so the listener and the viewer at home can check that out? And then we will, when you all are ready, let's start the bell. Let's kick this thing off. Moon, you're on the clock, my friend.
I'm about to go to the sleeper app and make my pick through there.
Do it.
But
what are you thinking though? Like what's coming through your head for pick 1? The first selection.
I mean, a lot of. Let's just be honest with you, right? So obviously, you think Superflex and you think, oh my gosh, quarterbacks. But based on the guy that we just got done talking about, if I'm a player that has a need at running back position or a running back that I'm uncertain about heading into next year, i.e. Miles Sanders, i.e. Josh Jacobs, some of these other, even if you want to add like somebody like Derrick Henry out there, I'm kind of like, I need to be able to secure my future. If I already have a quarterback in zone, I'm probably not going to be entertaining CJ Stroud or Bryce Young with this pick. If I do have a super flex and I already have 2 quarterbacks on my roster, hey, but it's not a lock that a rookie is going to come in at that quarterback position and be able in a super flex league to give you the threshold of points that you're going to need to be able to be competitive on a week in and week out basis. Fantasy is a week to week game. It's a compound of an entire season, but it's really week to week. And how many points per game are you averaging for the season? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about the rookie quarterbacks that came in last year. We can start with Kenny Pickett and how he struggled. It wasn't really until the end of the season where we was just like, okay, maybe you're in that 15 to 18 point threshold right there. Actually started to get things cooked up for George Pickens at the demise of Deontay Johnson. But like my thought process overall is like it takes some time for these rookie quarterbacks to get adjusted. If I had to pick a quarterback, I want the guy that's gonna give me numbers and production. And now that CJ Stroud has checked that box from a fantasy perspective, what we saw in the Georgia game, I'm not saying that he's gonna add like a Jalen Hurts floor of rushing or whatever. Neither Bryce Young, because they're not. That's not their games. But I would say CJ, it for me is that guy that I would go after based on what I've seen on tape and how that would translate over to fantasy. High completion percentage, the ability to be able to be pinpoint accurate where from wherever you go. We got to know that wherever these quarterbacks go, they're going to be drafted in pretty bad situations. So that's also something that's going to be in it. So my thought process is there is like you think super flex and you think, oh my God, quarterback, but there's only really 4 guys that we're gonna have that conversation in this draft. Really, if we're gonna keep it a buck, it's CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. If we were doing 3-round, 4-round, maybe Tanner McKee, like maybe a Jake Ainer. But outside of those 4, those are the 4 we're gonna have interest in. Bijan is my pick, and I don't think I'm gonna make it difficult. I know there's some quote unquote injury concerns, but I'll let that be in the back of my head. I'm not going to bring it to the forefront. Everything that you would want with a guy, a kid that has power, a kid that has finesse, the ability to, scan the field before he takes off and when he's running the ball. He has a skill set that every NFL franchise would definitely have to consider and take seriously, and it's one of a modern NFL running back. The reasons why I would buy in on Bijan is athleticism. When you add explosiveness, you add elusiveness, you add speed, you add his build being the prototypical build that you would want from a running back, and you also add in the passing game. I know that's a lot of these running backs leave a lot to be desired in the passing game this year as far as like pass protection. But from what we've seen out of Bijan, he will be my guy for the lock. So I know I talked your head off, but that's my thought process for this draft.
All right, put it in so you don't get skipped. You got 29 seconds left on the clock. Then after you make that selection, no, you're good, man. After you make that selection, Jeremy, you're on the clock. But Nino, are you looking to chime in or what?
No, I mean it's the first pick of the draft. You gotta make that talk. You gotta explain why you're taking him at 1. So you were good, man.
Yeah, man. Oh, Jeremy, you went with your selection, man. So no, he didn't.
You gotta go back.
I was wondering. So Jason, you got to pause the draft or do whatever you got to do to go back to 2. So Jeremy, talk us through what you're thinking and let us know who you're going to select.
So I agree with Robinson at 1. I think that's a smart pick there, Moon. But for me, again, like you mentioned a lot and talked about, is Superflex's quarterbacks. Yes, it takes a while for that production to come in. We've seen it no matter who you are. You mentioned Kenny Pickett, but we saw it in the Trevor Lawrence draft class. Trevor Lawrence didn't come in and all of a sudden be this great fantasy asset that we were hoping for. Justin Fields didn't do it. Trey Lance had to battle his injuries and stuff along those lines. So for me, I'm going to take CJ Stroud once you figure out that mock draft there. But CJ Stroud's going to be the guy that I am personally going to take. Like you mentioned, Moon, we saw a lot in that Georgia game, but even throughout the year, he was one of the least kind of pressured guys when you look at Pro Football Focus as far as dropbacks under pressure. But CJ Stroud, so that's something that we had left to be undesired. And then we saw it in the Georgia game where he had that evadability and the ability to get out of the pocket, even when there was an immense amount of pressure, and still throw some pretty well on target throws on the run, as well as having what I like to deem like evadability in his mobility.
Right.
It's not that he's not going to be Lamar Jackson out there. He's not going to give you the Hurts, the Justin Fields, the Josh Allen type numbers.
But he will avoid pressures.
Exactly. He's going to avoid pressures. He's going to give you kind of, I like to lean on like the Russell Wilsons or the Dak Prescotts of the world, like where they have some mobility. They're going to get you what they need. If they have to get you a first down or they have to get you a 5-yard rush for a touchdown, he's going to be able to do that. I just think the ceiling's a little bit higher. I like his size. Obviously, we could see where he actually measures it at the combine here. A little bit more of that prototypical NFL size. Has the accuracy that doesn't have to be taught, which Bryce Young also has. But for me, I just like the size. I think the upside's a little bit higher with CJ Stroud. He's just not as safe as Bryce Young. But here, for me, the way that I look at it, where Moon was going, saying, hey, I want production points now. But if I'm picking second, most likely the quarterback's not the reason. I need more than one player, and I'm not going to get that all in the rookie draft. So for me, Bijan Robinson, great pick. But unless I'm a team that traded for that pick and I'm ready to compete already, or I had a ton of injury issues at 1-1, I'm kind of leaning quarterbacks, because quarterbacks and wide receivers are how I build Dynasty, just because the production windows are longer if you do hit on them. So as a lower team, that's kind of where I'm at, especially in Superflex. I'm going quarterbacks anytime I can in the top 5.
Love it. Love it. All right. I'm on the clock here and I'm picking third. And I'd like to think that the only reason I'm picking third is probably because I finished 10th or 11th and I traded up. So with that being said, I'm close. All right. I'm knocking on the door. I'm close. And I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs. All right. Jahmyr Gibbs had over 1,300 yards last year. I just think he's a volume monster. I know he's going to get production. He'll probably get about 10 to 14 carries a game. We'll get about 4 to 6 or 7 receptions a game. That puts him up to about 21, 22 touches a game. I think this dude is just so good in space. And I think with the way the game is shifting, we have two fields of thought right now in the NFL. We have those teams that are, you're starting to see the run heavy team come back. And I don't think he fits in that offense. Okay. But you're starting to see that come back. You're starting to see teams focus on building that defense, focus on that run game. But you're also seeing these young offensive coordinators come in and run these high-powered offenses where they're throwing the ball, 35 to 45 times a game. They need a back come out of the backfield. He can catch the ball. And this cat, not only can he catch the ball, he's shown that he can run inside enough, and he's smart. He's aware of his disadvantage against these. When he's inside the hash marks, I feel like he's a different ball carrier than when he's outside the hash marks. He runs smart inside the hash marks. He knows he ain't trying to get that contact. He knows he's overpowered. He knows he's a little smaller than these guys, and he knows he's trying to find that lane so he can get outside. And if an offensive coordinator sees that, works with him, and knows his disadvantages, I think they're going to try to get him on the edge as often as possible, get him out of space. Because what I love about him is when he's the type of guy, you give him an inch, he takes a mile. When he sees space, he's so fast and so quick and so decisive that it's just chunk yardage. So if you put him on my fantasy roster, if I'm drafting this guy, he's the type of guy where the first half I could see, maybe he's got 11 carries for 30 yards. And then, let's say 2 receptions for 15. He's only got 4 or 5 points. And then in the second half, all it takes is 2 or 3 chunk plays. So it's like, I like Sean Tucker, in the second round or so. And Sean Tucker, he's fast and he's got those quick feet, but he doesn't have the passing down ability. Like this guy, he has that speed, but he also, he understands how to adjust his body to the football. He just understands like Robinson. Don't get me wrong. I think Bijan is an elite pass catcher as well. Like you see that guy adjust his body to the balls thrown outside of his natural catch radius and just continue moving fluidly without stopping his forward progress. Gibbs does that as well. I don't think Gibbs is as powerful as Robinson. I don't think he has as much pop. Like one thing I love about watching Robinson is not just watching him, it's hearing him. Like when he makes contact with a defender, it's a different sound, I feel like, than any other back I've watched this year. Just that pop in short area. And I know I'm not taking Robinson, so I shouldn't really be talking him up too much.
Hey, that's my guy, man.
Yeah, I think Gibbs is overall what he can do as far as fantasy production. I think hands down, I think he's the second best prospect that's not a quarterback for rookie, like for a dynasty league, for a fantasy football league. And I do agree, running backs have a short shelf life, but I'm also under the impression here that I traded up from 10. And I'm taking the third selection, and this guy's going to help me take it to the next level. So
hey,
I'm going to take, go ahead, my man.
Real quick.
Yeah.
This question is for the guest.
All right. 1 second though, Jason, we got to pause that. We got to go back. So that's done. All right. Go ask the guests, ask away.
Najee Harris, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. Which of these 1.01 running backs would you have? and why in a sentence?
It's not close. I mean, it's not even close. It's Bijan by far. He's more explosive, quick, fast than Najee, and I think he's shown more dominance, especially early on, than Breece Hall has from an overall perspective. There's my one sentence. It was a run on, but it counts.
It was a run on. I love it.
What about you? What about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's Bijan. Najee was never even the 1-1 for me, so I don't really care about Najee.
I was trying to start controversy with you,
Jeremy. Yeah, he's not even in there. For me, it's Bijan. At least at this point, he's uninjured. Like Shane had mentioned, a lot more pop, a little bit more explosiveness. He was better than Breece Hall last year. So again, I still think Bijan no matter what. And I like Breece Hall, but again, you're going to have a year where he's coming off an ACL now, so you're probably got a down year in Dynasty, just like Javonte. So I'm going to take
I like Javonte and Breece.
Bijan's the RB1 in Dynasty right now. I'd trade Jonathan Taylor for the 101 right now. I'd trade any running back for the 101 easily.
So Bijan,
just
without knowing where he's going,
I don't care.
You don't even care where he's going.
I don't care.
It doesn't matter. If someone's taking him, he's gonna be the workworkhorse. That's it. If Dallas takes him, they're cutting Ezekiel Elliott.
That's happening regardless.
Preach.
I
mean,
draft
capital too.
I love him, but I still gotta wait to see where he goes.
I don't care. It never matters. It never matters for running backs. Doesn't matter. Let's not play Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It doesn't matter where he goes.
You don't think it matters if he goes to Philadelphia?
No.
I mean, you don't think they'll mess it up? You don't think they'll mess it up?
Why would they mess it up? They have
They just turned Miles Sanders into a 1,200-yard rusher.
Yeah.
Come on, coach.
You know what I mean?
This is gold. This is gold.
But you don't think they're going to keep Miles Sanders around and then they'd have them both?
They have Kenneth Gainwell to fill that role.
No.
If you keep Sanders around and draft Bijan, guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's better than Sanders.
I know he's better, but I also think that Sanders is better than Gainwell, and I think Sanders is better than Scott, and I still think that they managed to rotate them enough that Sanders you don't get to see the full potential of the high ceiling that you'd expect from Miles Sanders. I think he's better than the Eagles give him credit for.
They gave him last year when he got 0 touchdowns.
Falcons, Bears,
I think
Giants.
the thing with Sanders is there's some injury concern there. He kind of proven year over year that.
And don't get me wrong, I think Bijan and him aren't even in the same category. I'm just saying I just don't trust the Eagles to – I'm trying to make a point that I need to know where he goes. And I guess – all right.
However situation, coach. You know how it goes.
Opportunity.
He's a different prospect. I would have had this conversation with Najee, Javonte, Breece, all those Gibbs, Evans, Bigsby. You want to keep going the rest of the class.
Who's the worst run NFL franchise?
I feel like it's still in matter, coach.
But answer me. Cleveland. Well,
the worst run franchise?
Houston?
Washington?
I don't know.
Cleveland's pretty bad. They got themselves pretty stuck.
Yeah, but I love Nick Chubb, man. But also, I feel like they screwed up Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb could be carrying the ball every down. They don't need.
And he's still an RB1. So if they could screw him up, whoever takes Bijan,
but that means that his potential is even higher. Is whatever.
Hey, shout out to the people in the chat joining and watching.
Whatever.
The Cleveland Browns thing with
Nino, you were on the clock. This is let's move this thing along. Who we drafted, my friend?
Nino?
All right, so I'm in the 4th spot, which is like what I like to call the waiting room.
Don't overthink it, bro.
And I'm going to go with Jackson, Smith, and Jigba, okay? Because at the 4th spot, I'm looking for a guy that's going to perform. He's a wide receiver that I think is plug and play. Come right in, get it done. In the slot, he's going to eat. He doesn't have to be the alpha. We already seen him at Ohio State not be the alpha and put up alpha numbers behind Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is a instant numbers producer in the NFL, and I think he can do it all over the field.
Hey, Shane, you remember when we was doing our mock draft that one time and you was picking after me, and I think I had the Seahawks, and he was talking about the Steelers. I think you had the Steelers, and he was like, here's another opportunity for NFL franchise to mess it up because they just don't want to get it right. And the Steelers fall into it. Is this another situation, Shane?
Look, I think I would mail Nino $20 if this is what happened in the rookie draft. I would be bowing down because I think the 105 is the worst spot. I think it's the worst spot in a rookie draft to pick because I do think there's a clear top 4 in a super flex with the 2 running backs, CJ Stroud. But thankfully, I think I got the 4th guy, and Bryce Young, the quarterback out of Alabama. I play Dynasty based on value. I have a podcast at Every Marketplace. We just talk about values. If a guy's value is going to increase, I want him on my team because I can trade him for more. I don't really care too much about production. Bryce Young's value is going to continue to increase no matter what you think about him, no matter what you think about his size. He was a 5-star recruit. He dominated in high school. He won the Heisman Trophy and dominated in college. He's probably going to dominate in the NFL. That's usually how it works. You don't want to overthink it too much. But the rushing ability in fantasy is a cheat code, and Bryce Young's going to have that cheat code whether he needs it or not. The nice thing with quarterbacks is their value stays the same as long as they're starting. The value is not going to drop that much. And for Bryce Young, if he's running the football, he's scoring fantasy points, even if he's not that great. It's not Justin Fields. I love Justin Fields. I think he's going to be a great quarterback. He wasn't a great passer this year. It doesn't matter. He ran all over the field. He scored points. Bryce Young is going to probably, maybe even as a rookie, maybe as a year 2 guy, going to be a QB 15, maybe even a low-end QB 1. I think that's easily who you take at the 105, and if you don't like him, you're scared of injury, then you can trade him for much more.
I like it. Good analysis. And then we have Jake. Jake is in the green room right now. He's making his selection from the 6th spot. That's at Dino Dialogue on the Twitter, so you can go check him out. So right now we're 5 picks in. Bijan Robinson, which I think consensus. We got Stroud. We got Gibbs. We got Najigba. We got Bryce Young. So far, 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs. I think that's pretty standard, especially like what we were talking about earlier without there being a true alpha in the upcoming NFL draft at the wide receiver position. But I do agree with what Nino said about Jackson Smith and Najigba, man. Like, I think he's another guy who's just going to get a lot of touches. He's going to demand touches. This dude just knows how to get open. All right, Dino Dialogue says
we got a chat coming in.
Yeah, make your selection.
Anthony Richardson taking a big swing here. Highest ceiling of any quarterback. Probably have to sit on him for a year. Then I take Caleb Williams next year.
I love it. Oh, he put it in. All right, so Anthony Richardson is the 3rd quarterback off the board, and he's taking a big swing, like he said. So Shane's going for the value, the trade bait. If Richardson hits, the value there at 6 to trade that away, even if you don't want to start the guy, is immense. So Shane, you're on the clock, my friend, at the 7th selection. You're muted, pal. I just palled you, by the way.
You just throwing that at me there, Coach.
Yeah, I just palled you.
What is that? It's interesting because I think we get into this next tier of do you take one of the big 3 receivers? Nino took JSN, but you look at Jordan Addison from USC, Quentin Johnston from TCU. I think all 3 of those guys are probably going to be 1st-round picks in the NFL draft. Pretty solid bets, and that could be a good selection. But once again, I'm here to play the value. There's only 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. 25% of them suck, and there's a handful of others that.
Where does Tua stand in that?
I like Tua, but he, hopefully everything will be behind him and he'll play. I think if he plays well. But for fantasy, you have kind of that bottom tier that's not going to help you very much, and guys that are rotating out. So if I can get a quarterback that's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, then it's worth taking. And I would take Will Levis over Anthony Richardson because I have more faith in the draft capital for Will Levis. I have some fear that Anthony Richardson is going to be the Malik Willis this year, that he could fall out of the 1st round, and then we're scrambling, and then all these early mock drafts and early pre-draft NFL drafts, what's going to happen. I think Will Levis is pretty safe. He's had this buzz for a long time. He has the upside. And even though I don't like Will Levis as a prospect, sorry, Nino, I don't think he's very good. It doesn't matter. We've had a string of the not very good quarterbacks that people don't like becoming good fantasy quarterbacks. In 2019, it was Daniel Jones. Everyone would take Dwayne Haskins over him. In 2018, it was Josh Allen. People were taking Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold over him. That was the case. In 2020, it was Justin Herbert, right? Joe Burrow, Tua were well above him, and people were, in one league I'm in with Coach, I got Justin Herbert at the end of the first round in the Superflex. I think Will Levis is that guy where you are going to get solid value. If he starts and looks halfway decent, the value increases. You can trade him for more, and you have a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'll squeeze all the quarterbacks, and a couple of these teams in your league aren't going to have two to start in Superflex, and they're going to come crying to me for a quarterback, and that's when I take advantage.
and you're going to step on their throats.
And look, you've seen me do it in leagues. I've done it. And I continue to do it.
Shane's the champ, by the way, in the Too Legit league. He took the title from me this past season.
This is the one I'm interested to see right here.
All right, Jeremy, you're on the clock
right there.
8th pick.
Everybody just keeps taking my guys. I thought one of these guys was well. No, I didn't think so. This is kind of where I sit with this. I actually have Richardson at 8-9-ish, so he was a little early for me. But yeah, at 8, I'm going to go Jordan Addison. So for me, I was kind of out a little bit on Jordan Addison for a little bit. But I really broke down his thread on Twitter and stuff like that. Really broke down watching him. He's just a very fluid mover. He's not going to kill you with that top end speed. He doesn't have the Jalen Hyatt type speed, but he's very fluid. And he is quick. He manipulates his speed well, creates good separation within his routes. He's not that twitchy type of route runner, but he understands the leverage. He gets cornerbacks into pickles, and he has that ability to get them with their hips turned the wrong direction and has enough quickness and foot speed to snap it back to the other direction in whichever way his route is going. And he also kind of cleaned up the drops from Pittsburgh to USC. So that was positive to see. I know people still are worried about that. I know I've seen that kind of as a narrative on Twitter and stuff like that, but that progression, we already saw him kind of take a step forward and kind of work on that and get that better. So I'm not overly worried about that. We've seen it in the past. Deontay Johnson was a guy that everybody was down on because he had a bad season of drops the next year. I think last year, I don't think he even had one. Did he have one?
Right. 0, yeah.
Yeah, he was significantly better. So I'm not too worried about that issue there. I also think that he's going to land in a very good situation. I know he's that undersized type of receiver, but we just saw Devontae Smith have a monster year as an undersized receiver. So I'm not really worried. I think he's going to be a monster that can play from the slot and or out wide, depending on where the offensive coordinator wants to put him.
I like it. So I'm on the clock with the 9th selection. And I was contemplating where I thought you were going to go. And then when I thought about where you were going to go, I had like 2 or 3 guys that I was deciding between, and that was Addison, that was Flowers, and that was Downs. Like I thought you were going to go Quentin Johnson, and I was thinking between the 3 and who I would take. And I like Downs a lot. I think Downs is the best route runner of the 3. I think Flowers is the twitchiest of the 3, but I think Addison is a combination of Flowers and Downs, and I think that might put him above the other 2 because what they lack, which either of them lack, he doesn't. So I like that selection. I think, of that tier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with Quentin Johnson. And at the 9 spot, I just feel like that's a huge swing for the fence. The guy's 6'4". He is hella fast. He can. I love like how he climbs the ladder. He worries me about how he uses his body, like for contested catches. He's not very good at boxing out. He's not very good at getting physical. He did most of all of his production in the Big 12, so that worries me. His route tree worries me, but just his overall athletic ability. This dude's a freak of nature. Like 6'4", running that fast, and then being able to jump that high, being able to move his body like he does. At the 9 spot, like this is almost a 2nd-round pick now. And I feel like going into the year, he was probably in the top 5 discussion. So I feel like he's fell, and rightfully so. He disappeared for a bit of this year. Only having 1,069 yards in 14 games is not very good, but he had 17.8 yards per reception. 6 touchdowns isn't very good, but I'd like to think that if he goes somewhere, this is going to be landing spot dependent too, where Quentin Johnson goes. But I do think the ceiling's there. You can see it. You put on his film, you could just see the natural ability and the traits, and you hope that he's not just another wide receiver who put up big numbers in the Big 12. You hope that he can come to the NFL and he can do it, and he can expand his route tree, and he can expand his role and become a true X, because this draft, there aren't a lot of true outside receivers. There aren't. And he's one of them. And I like getting that where I got it. I think getting him at the 9th selection is value. So he is off the board. And then the next selection, Moon, you're on the clock, my friend, at number 10.
I'm about to give a bold statement, but I don't really think it's bold. I'm in love with Luke Musgrave. And I think I have him as my tight end 1. This is out there. I'm not taking Luke Musgrave. I'm not. But I'm in love with him. Like 6'6", 250. Anytime you can get a guy that size that has just athleticism, bend, size, just the developmental upside that comes from that, I look at him as deeper than just a project player. I got to get him in there because he might go in the second round and he might not make it to me. But I'm this pick right here.
Nino, what should he do? What should Moon do right now with his chest?
Say it from his chest. Say
it with your
like.
chest, man.
Speak up loud. Let everybody hear you.
You can't bring this guy up and not select him. You guys say it with your chest.
When you talk about tight ends,
get him.
Like, there's only a handful. Like every year it feels like we don't know. Like just take this past year, we didn't know who outside of Travis Kelce. If you want to include Dallas Goedert in that mix, I mean, before all the hype, I'm gonna talk about my Falcon Kyle Pitts, but also like just all the top tier tight ends. It's just like a fall off of a cliff afterwards. I didn't think that Gerald Everett was gonna be a top 10 tight end this year. Did you? Like, so I'm just saying, like, tight end capital. I'm interested to know what Shane and Jeremy think about it, but I see Michael Mayer going in this spot often when I'm drafting, but I like Luke Musgrave as a player better than him. I'm going to take Luke Musgrave at the spot, bro. And I think, I will. So and I think because you talk about players that can increase with value, right? I think his value is only going to increase more when combine happens. I think that when you talk about his ideal fit, he can be an inline tight end, he can be a wide tight end in your role. You could talk about the scheme fit, perfect. I'm thinking a situation where you have heavy run oriented. Like if he was the number 2 tight end for my Falcons, for example, behind Kyle Pitts, with our aggressive system that we run, a heavy play action that we use 60+% of the time, like that's a high fit. Where I feel like they utilize in the scheme fit, he can make up for that. But I see him as a seam and red zone threat. Seam and red zone equals what? Opportunity. And I'm going to take him there because I see Michael Mayer going in this spot all the time, and I just don't believe. After watching Musgrave at the Senior Bowl and everything, and watching more tape on him, I think that he has a higher ceiling, in my opinion, than Michael Mayer. So I'll take him at pick 10.
Excellent. Nino, ask your question, kid.
That's going to cause controversy.
That's going to cause it.
And Jeremy, in this tight end group, right? You wouldn't put Dalton Kincaid above Luke Musgrave?
Dalton?
Yeah.
Kincaid?
Yeah, I would. I mean, look, I think what Moon said is accurate. I think Luke Musgrave, you can argue, has the highest ceiling or second highest ceiling of tight ends in the class. I mean, the problem with Luke Musgrave is he only played 2 games this year. And last year only had 1 game where I thought he was very good.
11 receptions, 1 touchdown on his career, right?
Well, for this year, for 2022.
For this 2022.
You know, so that's tough for me. I mean, you can do whatever you want at the Senior Bowl, but I got to see you playing games. And so, the fact that Luke Musgrave can be a second-round pick and have only played 2 games, I think speaks to the upside that he has. I think it's a little early to take him because just the draft capital. Now, look, I agree with Moon that he probably has more upside than Michael Mayer. Absolutely. Michael Mayer probably has a safety to be Pat Freiermuth, and you're going to get at least a high end tight end 2, low end tight end 1 in fantasy with that. But Dalton Kincaid, I think, brings some similar elements of upside while giving you, many games of production. I think, Darnell Washington and Luke Musgrave, I like Musgrave a little bit more, but Washington maybe has similar upside. It's a great tight end class, and that's what's going to make it tough in non-tight end premium of where you take these players.
Our boy Joe Knows loves Washington out of Georgia. That's his guy. But Nino, you're on the clock after stirring the pot. So go ahead and make your selection.
He says stirring the pot. So for me, I'm at a spot here where quarterbacks are gone. Well, a couple of big name wide receivers are already off the board, and everybody's talking value. And I got 2 running backs to me are just screaming value. One gentleman, he played at 2 schools, and the same question came up at both schools. His attitude, he's a feisty player, but he's 1,000-yard rush both schools. He was just under 1,000 yards at Ole Miss this year. TCU, he was a 1,000-yard rusher. Zach Evans is getting disrespected a lot. I see in mock drafts. I mean, I think that he is the closest one in this running back category to Bijan. Obviously, he's not in that tier, but I think the skills, what he's put on film, he's right there. Now, we want to talk about value and pass catches, out of the backfield. He was pretty top 3 running back last year. He decided to return and go back to school, and that's UCLA's Zach Charbonnet, right? So I'm kind of torn in between both guys at the spot because I think both guys offer huge upside and value, and going into whatever landing spot they could be, they could just eat early and often. But
and also, you're picking 12.
Spot,
so
I'm going to go with disrespect.
Mm-hmm. I was saying you're picking 12, so that's like
I'm
you're
picking
also
11.
I'm sorry, you're picking 11, so you're 1 spot away from being the champion. So you getting a guy like this who can come in and produce is huge.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Zach Evans. I'm going to take the disrespect, chip on his shoulder. The guy's done it in 2 different programs, produced. I think he's an instant threat in the backfield. He can bang. He's got some size. He's not afraid of contact. His yards after contact is great. He can make people miss. He's not twitchy. He's not wild like that, but he is a power back. He does catch a few passes here and there, and he was just a product of an unbelievable freshman running back that just demanded more attempts and more targets in Judkins. So I think Zach Evans is my pick here. I think he's a steal at the back end of this draft.
Love it. And that's Laub's guy. The Gridiron Scholar loves him some Zach Evans. I just was listening to the Rookie Big Board discuss him this evening when I was making some dinner. So now we have Jason. You're the final selection. 12th pick. You won the championship. So Nino's trying to take it from you with that pick, but you are the champion. You got the belt. So who you selected?
No, I am being the champion. That means I've probably got a lot of aged players. Maybe I have a Derrick Henry. I probably have Travis Kelce. I got guys that are good, but getting older, and you got to replace some of that value, right? I need a running back here, and I am taking the guy out of UCLA, Cabernet. And look, Nino, I think, took the wrong guy. Now, I like a guy who can play in 2 teams, play in 2 different schemes, and do well in both. But I think running back here out of UCLA is just a better pick. Downhill runner, a lot of burst. He just has a good feel for blockers. He just when you watch him play, he sees the holes opening up and runs behind him. So that's my guy. That's who I'm taking here at 12.
I like it. Shane and Jeremy, tell me if I'm wrong, but Charbonnet kind of I see James Conner a little bit when I see. Is that a bad comparison? Is that a safe comparison?
I think he has more burst than James Conner.
I think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't really place him in the James Conner category.
James Conner was a dude.
Is he talking about his build
at Pittsburgh? He was a dude. Before he got sick, James Conner was like an alpha.
I know he's not going to be this good. I'm not. Don't anybody hold me to this, but I see a lot of Derrick Henry in him. I think that the style that he runs, he doesn't really run with a ton of power. Everybody wants to give him this huge power designation. He does have it, and he's not afraid to lower his shoulder, and he'll get those tough yards when it's needed. But Charbonnet does have a bigger,
finesse.
taller stance. And he also has quick and short kind of strides. I mean, there's a game in Colorado. It's I have a clip out on Twitter. I mean, he makes a guy just completely out of his shoes, nimble feet, just completely sidesteps him. And he just reminds me a lot of Derrick Henry, where it's kind of a surprised, nimble ability to him.
I like it.
That kind of doesn't necessarily lean on the power as much as you would think he would standing 6'1", 220. He does if he needs to, but I see a little bit of that when I watch him play. Not necessarily James Conner. I would put Zach Evans more in the James Conner category.
Got it.
Had to pick.
All right, we I thought we would get through 2 rounds like quick, and we have been chatty Cathy's this evening. We're at 55 minutes. We're just about to start the second round. So Moon, you are starting this thing off. Where are you going? You already took Bijan. What's your next selection?
Well, if I'm picking for this team, I need pieces galore. And right now I'm in an interesting spot. The choice right now for me is between Zay Flowers and Jalen Hyatt. Which one do I think will have higher capable? I think it would be Jalen Hyatt. I think he forces players DB specifically, to play sound technique because the visibility to break off routes. And I know that his route tree isn't the best, but his suddenness and in and out of his breaks is very, very good. You pair that with the fact that, like, he can take the top off of a defense unlike any other player in this entire class. The concerns that knock on him is, well, his route tree isn't developed, but at the same time, he played at Tennessee and a superior spread team, and Josh Heupel was just in his bag all year calling plays. So it makes me think Hyatt, I would love to see him in like a team that runs heavy 11 personnel, heavy spread looks and stuff. And I talked about him this much, so might as well just take him.
All right, Jalen Hyatt.
But that would be my process right there. I would be thinking between Hyatt, Flowers. I already dogged Michael Mayer enough in this draft so for me to take him right there.
All right, Jeremy, you took CJ Stroud in the first round. Where are we going in the second?
So I mentioned it when I talked about CJ Stroud. At this point, I'm expecting this team needs a lot of pieces, kind of a little bit more in that rebuild category. So for me, where I have at my rankings right now, my 2 top guys left are Josh Downs and Tank Bigsby. So for me, I'm going to go Josh Downs. I want the wide receiver out of UNC. Quick separator, extremely good body control, reliable hands, leads the class in contested catch percentage at 75%. So for me, Josh Downs is a guy that, yes, he's slightly undersized, but he has enough physicality, creates good separation, real good body control, high points the ball excellently. He's going to be a menace in the slot at the NFL level, and that's a big knock on him. They say, oh, he doesn't have a perimeter profile. Well, there's another guy eating up fantasy points right now. His name's Amon-Ra St. Brown, playing out of the slot. So I'm in on it, So I think that he's going pretty hardly. I mean, if you can get him at 2-2, man, I'm going to be super happy in a lot of dynasty.
I love Downs. I love him. I love Josh Downs, man. I think he did very well. That is huge value in the second round. That all he does, not only is he very good at getting open, very good at catching the football. I love how he's utilized third down situations, his ability in short yardage situations, his ability in the red zone. Like, a quarterback's going to love him. An offensive coordinator is going to love him because they're just going to know we got to move the chains. He's going to be exactly where we need him to be. And he's also going to create massive amounts of space. And the quarterback's going to have an easy connection. Love it.
And he likes to attack the ball too. He comes back to it. A big trait that I like to see in wide receivers. So.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. So now I'm on the clock. This is my team that took Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round, and now I'm up in the second round, third selection. Again, I traded up, so this team is talented. It's loaded, and I'm feeling pretty good about this roster. Shane's shaking his head. That's the situation, man. I created this mock, all right? I put the show together, all right? So it's that's what I say it is. So that's what it is. And I'm going value. I'm going Hendon Hooker, all right? He's going to be back by training camp. I think this guy, he's going to slip. And he's going to end up with an NFL team that doesn't need a quarterback to start right away. They can wait. They can be patient. I am close enough to winning in this league that I can afford to be patient. If I got quarterbacks, if I don't necessarily need Hendon Hooker to produce, if he gets an opportunity or if he starts to look good, if there starts to be buzz, I can ship him and hopefully turn this second-round pick into a first-round pick plus. That's what quarterbacks go for in Superflex. So I'm hoping that this is an investment, and then maybe I keep him on my roster. Maybe he ends up somewhere, he backs up somebody, he takes over, and he looks good because he looked good in college. So I'm taking Hendon Hooker, and then that being said, on the clock, we got Nino. Go ahead, my friend.
All right, so I took Njigba here at the 4th spot. So I at this point in the waiting room spot, I need pieces. I'm not like Coach where I don't just make up a thing when my team was good, so I traded to get the spot.
I didn't make it up. It happened.
I wasn't the trash barrel. They was shooting paper to the barrel. I'm one of those little pieces of paper that fell off to the side. My team. So I need pieces. I got things that I need. There's guys out there that I like. Tight end. Obviously, in Superflex, usually tight end is tight end premium. They get a little bit extra. So May is there, and they're juicy. But I'm looking at these running backs. I keep going down the list. And, man, we're talking value in the second round. And I think I'd be doing all my research, titles, and this gentleman a disservice if I didn't take him here at the 4th spot. So I'm going to go with Tajay Spears out of Tulane because I think for value and upside, I think Tajay Spears offers more of what is available for running backs in the draft at this point. I think he's better than Izzy. I think the only other gentleman I think could get more instant value would maybe Deuce Vaughn, but that's hugely depending on landing spot. Tajay Spears can run inside, can run outside, can catch the ball. He pretty much makes people miss in the size area of a phone booth, and he is about 25 pounds less than Bijan Robinson. So I just love what he brings, and I know Shane will say you got to perform outside of the Senior Bowl. Tajay Spears performed for the last 9 weeks of the season. The last 2 games was 200 yards. He went off for 4 touchdowns against USC. So my guy gets done at Senior Bowl. He's done it in bowl games, and he's done it in the regular season. So I'm going with Tajay Spears.
Roll wave. Shane, you're on the clock.
So if this was a tight end premium, I would take Michael Mayer and consider Dalton Kincaid. I think 2 tight ends we talked about before that are going to go in the first round of the NFL draft. Not being tight end premium, I have one more player that I want that I feel pretty confident is going to be drafted above, I'll say at least 2 running backs that have gone already in this draft, and that's Devin Achane, the running back out of Texas A&M. He's small, and I think that is what you can get an advantage of in your rookie drafts, is people are just going to look at his size and say, oh, I don't want him historically. The analytics people say he's too small, whatever, 5'9", 185. I think hopefully he comes in a little bit bulkier, 190, maybe even 195 at the combine. He's going to compete for the fastest 40 time at the combine, likely in the 4.2s. And he's tough. He was the workhorse for Texas A&M this year, ran up the middle, ran with power despite the size. He can be not a workhorse NFL running back, but he can be out there on first down and second down, along with having the elite pass catching skills. I think Devin Achane is going to be a top 50 NFL draft pick. If that's the case, I take him here.
All right. And then we got Jake. He's sitting in the green room, and he went ahead and he took Sean Tucker. So we have a little bit of a running back run right now, and he said that it's his RB2. So go check him out on Twitter at Dino Dialogue, and you can see his reasoning behind it. So Sean Tucker's his RB2, and he got him halfway through the second round. Shane, you're back on the clock.
I think there's just too much value here to me to pass on Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame.
How did you end up with 2 picks, like 2 picks away from each other?
I don't know whoever set up this draft and decided where people pick, and if they moved up or moved down or whatever. I don't know. They must have given it to me.
Where's your value? Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm taking Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. I think it's just too much value for a tight end that's been dominant for 3 years. That's going to be an immediate starter in the NFL as a blocker and has nice soft hands, can get in that zone coverage. Tight end's always a tough position to take. in rookie drafts because they don't produce immediately, and you're not going to get, he's not going to turn into Travis Kelce here. But I think Mayer has a really high floor and still has a decent ceiling. The value's too good in the mid-second to pass on what could be a top 20 draft pick.
Shane, is it possible that Michael Mayer is Trey McBride?
I think he's much better than Trey McBride in terms of longevity in college. I mean, Trey McBride came out last year and 2 years ago and had a great year. Michael Mayer's, as an 18-year-old, was doing this against people. I think that's the difference to me, is we have seen him do it for a longer period of time, younger against NFL players. He was able to catch the football. He was able to make plays. So I think, like I made the comparison before, I think we're seeing maybe Pat Freiermuth at the NFL level, and I think that's fine to take in the second round of a rookie draft.
Jeremy, you are on the clock with your 8th selection of the second round.
Yeah. A lot of guys,
and I'm waiting patiently because I'm depending on what you do on what I'm going to end up doing.
I feel like I'm going to go with the highest guy left on my board. I wanted to get a little spicy, but I think I'm going to take Tank Bigsby.
Yeah.
A lot of running backs went before this guy. I have him ahead of all of the guys that are taken ahead at the moment. Draft capital is going to speak a lot, I think, and kind of clean up this rookie class at running back for me. I feel like everybody after Jahmyr Gibbs kind of is really similar, really close as far as talent level, what they bring. They all have their own issues. So for me, I really want to see where the draft capital is. Tank Bigsby's a guy that I've seen in some mock drafts and stuff that might not go until the 4th or 5th round, which is really going to kind of tank him for fantasy. If he gets that day 2 draft capital, I think Tank Bigsby is going to drive up boards. I won't get him at 2.8, but at the moment, I just like what he brings. I think he's got a lot of physicality. He has a home run speed. He's had some issues with vision and inconsistencies, but again, that Auburn offensive line this past season was atrocious. So he creates a lot. I mean, I've seen him. There's a game against Alabama. I mean, he made a guy miss after touching the ball for about 2.5 seconds and turned it into like 10 yards. So for me, I'm in on Tank Bigsby. I think he's been always near the top of this draft class for me, and I still am going to trust into what I've seen in the past. So.
I love it. I love that selection. And I felt like, you ever watch Pee Wee Herman growing up and there's the word of the day, and every time the word of the day is said, like everybody screams. I felt like that was going on in my head for all the different ways you use tank in that description. The draft stock's going to tank and tank. So that's where my head was at. But maybe it's because it's late, but I like it. I think if Tank Bigsby ends up in Dallas, or if he ends up somewhere with a mauling offensive line that can create some space, you got some big offensive linemen. He's a short guy, but he runs powerful and he runs hard. Like when he commits, he's out. So if he goes anywhere that can create some steady creases for him, I think he's going to be fantasy gold. But I do think I like Bigsby, but I do think it's kind of dependent on where he ends up. I hope he ends up in a good situation. But I love his willingness. He's a tank, but he's like the little engine that could. It don't matter. It don't matter if his team's getting beaten up. It doesn't matter if he's getting beaten up. Every snap he runs the same way, and I respect that, and I love that about him. So,
and I know he probably happy that Rich Gangarillo not following him to the league.
Yep. All right, I'm on the clock, and my number 10 player is still available, and that's Zay Flowers. So I'm going to go with Zay Flowers out of Boston College, and I mentioned earlier I have Josh Downs ahead of him. I have Jordan Addison ahead of him. And the reason I have Josh Downs and Addison ahead of him, I think they're more savvy at the position. But what I like about Zay, especially in the late second round, is how explosive he is. Everything, he's scrappy, he's twitchy, and everything he does is abrupt. Like, it is so sudden. I think some of the things he needs to learn how to do is he needs to learn how to space his routes. He needs to learn to understand how the other wide receivers are spacing their routes around him, because sometimes it just seems like he's running around out there with his hair on fire. But I think that can be worked with. I love the way he plays. He's a little guy, but he's aggressive and he's tough and he's physical. Well, last year he had 1,077 yards, 78 receptions, 13.8 yards per reception. He had 12 touchdowns. He's number 4 in the ACC all-time in career receiving touchdowns with 29, and number 10 all-time in the ACC with 3,056 career receiving yards. So that's pretty impressive. So, again, he's got some deficiencies, but I love how aggressive he is, and I think – you can't teach that. You can't teach scrappiness. You can't teach that fast twitch. You can't teach that explosiveness, but you can work with a guy like that and teach him how to understand you don't always have to do everything at 110% speed. Like if we're talking to running back, we might not want to dial that back. When we're talking to wide receiver, sometimes you need to dial that back because everything around you needs to develop so you can become open. Or you got to sit here and you got to wait in this hole. Or the quarterback's breaking up the play. It's a scramble drill and you got to float over here. So some of those things I think he can develop. And I think late in the second round, that's something that I'm willing to take a gamble on. So now with the 10 selection, who's on the clock? Moon, you're up. Go ahead, my friend. Oh, fella. You're muted, fella.
All right. My last pick was Luke Musgrave for this team. And like I said before, I only saw a little bit, but I'm banking on the future with that pick. Assuming that my team is already pretty set.
Yeah.
Unless
it traded with me. You were the third selection that traded back with me.
I've been hearing this guy get a lot of love, and then I got a chance to look at his tape more, and I saw a lot of things that stuck out to me. And it's kind of what Jeremy said is very true, as far as that's outside of Bijan and Jameer, everybody else just kind of feels like in that same pool, and draft capital is going to help determine and separate, separate everything for you to help you get a better fit of where you want to take these dudes. I think draft capital is going to matter with this next guy I'm going to talk about. His name is Kendre Miller, from running back from TCU. I like him from being a bigger back. He gets labeled as a power guy, but his burst when he hits the hole, is ridiculous. And he took over TCU's backfield and as a junior in 2020. Now I'm looking at some other guys. Would I rather have Kenny McIntosh here? Deuce Vaughn is still there. Why would you want to Why would you want to put and sell everything for Kendre? I would just say that there's 17 touchdowns in his production at TCU. I know that he has a blend of volume and efficiency that you would want when you project him forward. I know that he suffered the injury in the college football playoff, and I feel like that kind of hampered the buzz about him, especially after that shellacking that the TCU Horned Frogs had. But my point with Kendry is that I saw on his tape that his passing role could expand. They didn't really use him the most in that. But his ability to break tackles when everything in front of him is just ugly. It's beautiful to watch on film. I'm not gonna be long-winded, but TCU, he's probably my favorite player to watch on their team.
Excellent. Nino, you were on the clock. 11th selection of the second round.
All right. So I'm in a wide receiver trio that I kind of like here. One is my guy. He's been my guy since before college football started. I had him in my receivers, said they were going to blow the doors off, and that's Rashee Rice. I love him. I think he's, poor man's Quentin Johnson. I think he could possibly be Quentin Johnson in the end. The landing spot will matter. Another guy that I fell in love with. I've been talking about him all college football season, and then I fell in love with him hugely at the Senior Bowl because he just put everything I was saying about him on full display. And that's Tank Dell. The twitchiness, the speed, the release, the separation is elite. Obviously, the size is a little bit of a concern, but he plays so much bigger than the 5'8", 5'9". The other guy that it's in this that's really kind of got to me, and that's been ever since we did On the Clock with Trevor Sakima, that's Parker Washington. The more and more I watch him, he's got such strong hands. He didn't drop any balls all year last year, and Sean Clifford's terrible. So, the fact that he didn't drop any balls and they weren't throwing, really close to him is amazing in itself. He's kind of and I'm a New England guy, but he gives me, Julian Edelman vibes, really, really heavy. Maybe a little bit bigger than Edelman, and Edelman did a lot for the Patriots in the NFL in general. But Parker Washington got that little vibe to him. But I got to go with Rashee Rice. He's a dude. he's a stud. I think he can come in and start day one and put up numbers. And if we're talking, value, this is a value pick.
Love it. So there goes Rashee Rice at SMU, which is a team with one of the smoothest looking uniforms in all of college football. So you got to hand that to him. All right, Jason, you're on the clock to finish this draft, my friend.
All right.
I see what you did there.
So, you guys left me Deuce Vaughn, and I'm gonna take Deuce Vaughn. Like, I think a lot of it does end up like where he ends up as a player. He ends up on a team with some opening running back position. Like, Vaughn's gonna be a slam dunk. 2021, 13 games, 1,400 yards, 234 carries, 6 yards per carries, 18 touchdowns. Come on, 2022. 13 games, 1,400 yards, 5.3 per carry, 8 touchdowns, only 1 fumble. Dude's got 43 receptions, 373 yards. Yeah, I mean, let's see if it can translate. But here at the end of the second round, to get that kind of production out of a college player, give me that all day long.
I love it. Well, that wraps up the first 2-round Dynasty Superflex rookie mock of the offseason for Toilets to Titles. We went a little bit longer than I was expecting, but if you've stayed with us throughout this whole episode, we appreciate you. Hopefully this will help you start to make your own analysis, start to make your own rankings so you can prepare for these rookie drafts. I know they aren't coming up soon. Some of them might come up after the NFL draft. Some of them might come up right before the NFL season. But again, for some of you, this might be the beginning of the process. Some of you, this might be the middle of the process. Wherever you are, hopefully in some way or some shape or form, this helped you. You got some insight into a few great minds in the Dynasty community, in the NFL draft community, in the college football community. So everybody on here this evening, Shane, Jeremy, Dino Dialogue, who's sitting at home, Moon, Jason, Nino, everybody, I appreciate you joining this evening. Tomorrow, I'll be down in Disney World with the mouse, and then I'm heading over to Universal with Spider-Man, so I'll be out the door, so you won't see me on the clock Thursday night. But
what happened to the shave, man? You got to shave it all off before you go.
I cleaned up, I buzzed, and then it came back in a week, but this is enough. Like, as long as it's not full beard, I'm okay. Because then I'll still be able to get some tan. I cleaned up the neck. I was thinking about buzzing my hair off. I was going to take my son and just start fresh, but that's coming, just not yet. Within a few weeks, a few months, you'll see the wig go, and then I'll start growing it back. But again, I don't want to keep everybody waiting too long. You're going to check this out, toiletstitles.com. We'll take this mock draft. We'll post it up there so you can see this, and then we'll start developing our ADP. So check everybody out. Appreciate you. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you all later on. Take care.